Melody Sherry, it feels like a story pulled straight out of a soap opera, except it's real life. The twists, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the tears, and the way everything keeps looping back to the same messy point. It's the kind of drama that keeps people glued to the screen. And trust me, if you think you already know how this is going to end, think again. Because with Martell, every time you think he has finally hit rock bottom, another trapdoor opens and he falls even deeper. This latest round of chaos, with the rumors of Martell being banned again by the network and Ariane Curry being rejected before she could even step foot on the show, has fans talking louder than ever before. And the deeper you go into it, the more shocking the details become. So buckle up, because this is going to be a ride you won't forget. Martell was once introduced to viewers as one half of a power couple. Back when Love and Marriage Huntsville first started, people saw Martell and Melody Sherry as this shining example of Black excellence. They were building businesses, they were raising a family, and they had this polished image that screamed success. But as we've learned over the years, appearances can be deceiving. Behind that picture-perfect front was a marriage built on cracks, lies, and betrayals that would eventually explode for the entire world to see. The center of that downfall was Martell's long-term affair with Ariane Curry, a woman who thought she would one day take Melody's place, but instead found herself locked in the shadows of Martell's chaos. From the moment the affair came out, fans were divided. Some couldn't believe Martell would risk his marriage and family for a relationship that looked unstable from the very beginning. Others were furious at Ariane for willingly being part of the destruction of a family. And then there were those who felt nothing but sympathy for Melody, who endured years of pain in the public eye, only to finally walk away and rebuild her life from scratch. Melody's story has become one of resilience and glow-ups, while Martell's story has been one of spiraling downfall. Fast forward to now, and the situation has reached a boiling point again. Rumors spread that Martell was once again banned by the network, and Ariane Curry was told she would never be welcomed on the show. Imagine that! After years of waiting, after countless online rants, after shading Melody every chance she got, the one thing Ariane thought she was about to achieve slipped away from her once again. It's almost like a cruel joke, standing outside the door, convinced it's finally about to open, only to realize it's locked tighter than ever before. Insiders claim Martell went into that meeting with producers pushing hard for Ariane. He argued that she could bring new drama, that viewers wanted to hear her side, and that her storyline as his partner and the mother of his child deserved to be seen. But when producers pressed him to explain what story she had beyond being the mistress, he struggled. He mumbled about her being a businesswoman with her online boutique, but everyone in that room knew it wasn't enough. The truth is, Ariane's brand is built around being the other woman, and no amount of rebranding or rants online can erase that image in the eyes of fans. Now, put yourself in the producer's shoes. You have an audience that has supported Melody through heartbreak, humiliation, and betrayal. They've watched her leave Martell, thrive on her own, and become an inspiration to so many women. Could you imagine those same viewers embracing Ariane, the very person who mocked Melody online, called her names, and proudly wore the title of side chick? The backlash would have been instant and brutal, and the producers knew it. That's why, according to insiders, the rejection wasn't just a simple no, it was a firm not today, not ever. But of course, Martell didn't take the rejection well. Reports say he got heated in that meeting. He accused producers of being biased toward Melody, claimed the network was protecting her while silencing him, and even threatened to expose them. Witnesses say he stormed out, slamming the door, while Ariane sat outside waiting, only to be told minutes later that her big moment wasn't going to happen. And when she heard the news, she allegedly broke down in tears. Imagine that, thinking you're about to step into the spotlight after years of waiting, only to find out you've been shut out again. Social media wasted no time reacting to the story. Some fans laughed, comparing Ariane's tears to an audition for a soap opera. Others said they felt sorry for her because it's clear she's been holding on to Martell's promises for years, only to be let down time and time again. For so long, she's believed he would make her number one, but the reality is he hasn't. He hasn't given her a ring, he hasn't made her his priority, and he hasn't given her the stable life she says she wants. Instead, he pulls her into his mess when it benefits him, then pushes her aside when it doesn't. And that's the part fans are tired of. Martell's obsession with forcing Ariane into the picture has less to do with her story and more to do with his lingering resentment.
So, the question remains. Has Martell finally lost all control, or is this just another chapter in a story that will never end? One thing's for sure. Melody isn't looking back. She's already written her new chapter. The real question is whether Martell and Ariane will ever stop chasing a story that's already finished. And now, let's look at the bigger picture. Martell's repeated attempts to force Ariane into the spotlight haven't just hurt himself, they've put the entire love and marriage Huntsville ecosystem at risk. Producers have had to walk a tightrope, balancing audience expectations, sponsor concerns, and the integrity of the show. And with every failed attempt by Martell, the pressure mounts. It's no longer just about personal drama, it's about brand survival. Networks don't thrive on chaos alone. They thrive on compelling stories with consequences, growth, and resolution. And Martell's behavior? It's starting to show that he's all chaos with very little substance. Insiders claim that some producers are even quietly lobbying for Martell's permanent removal. The reasoning is simple. The show has evolved, the audience has evolved, and Martell has not. While Melody has built a narrative of resilience and empowerment, Martell continues to be reactive, desperate, and unpredictable. Every time he tries to make Ariane a central figure, it backfires, creating backlash instead of engagement. And in television, backlash can be more damaging than silence. Meanwhile, Ariane is caught in the crossfire. Despite believing in Martell's promises, her credibility and personal brand are now closely tied to a man who repeatedly mismanages his own image. Fans see her as someone who's been swept along by Martell's drama rather than standing on her own, which further complicates her chances of ever gaining a meaningful platform. It's a harsh reality, but in the world of reality TV, perception is everything, and her current perception is being shaped largely by Martell's failures. Melody, on the other hand, remains untouchable. Every new project, every business move, and every appearance she makes continues to reinforce her narrative as the strong, independent, and successful woman who overcame betrayal. Fans are celebrating her journey, turning her glow-up into a storyline that rivals any scripted drama. She doesn't need Martell or Ariane to validate her success, she creates it herself. And the contrast between her trajectory and Martell's descent is stark, making his ongoing antics even more frustrating to viewers. Social media continues to fan the flames. Hashtags calling for Martell's removal trend repeatedly, while Ariane's attempts to tell her story are met with skepticism. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary dominate platforms, ensuring that every misstep is amplified and remembered. And while some argue that this attention keeps the show relevant, it also reinforces the idea that Martell's time in the spotlight might finally be over. Producers reportedly have several options on the table. They could continue giving Martell airtime, hoping the chaos translates into ratings, or they could finally cut him loose, giving the narrative back to Melody and allowing new storylines to emerge. If the network chooses the latter, it would mark a turning point, an acknowledgement that not all drama is worth sustaining, and that sometimes protecting the integrity of the show and its audience comes first. And make no mistake, if Martell is removed or significantly limited, it won't just affect him. Ariane would lose her chance for the spotlight, the cast dynamics would shift, and fans would finally see Melody's story take center stage without distraction. It's a scenario that many viewers are quietly rooting for, seeing it as a long overdue moment of justice and narrative closure. The ultimate question now becomes, will Martell finally realize that his era of influence is over, or will he continue to push, creating drama that no one wants? Because one thing is clear, the network, the cast, and the audience have all grown tired of the repeated chaos. And for Martell, the window of opportunity to regain control is closing fast. So as we continue counting down to the next big episode, the tension is palpable. Every eye is on Martell, every reaction is scrutinized, and every decision could be pivotal. The saga isn't over, but the scales are shifting, and Melody's light continues to shine brighter with each passing day. Fans are ready for closure, ready for accountability, and ready to see the story evolve into a student at a time.
She said she had students reading on a second grade level, and within a short time, she had them up to their actual grade level. That is not easy work. That is leadership. That is purpose. And if you've been following her journey on Love and Marriage Huntsville, you know that Melody has always carried that same energy into everything she does. Stay with me here because I want to connect this back to the show. On Love and Marriage Huntsville, we've seen Melody and Martell Holt go through one of the most public and painful divorces on reality TV. We've seen Marceau and Letitia Scott argue over business and marriage roles. We've seen the ups and downs of friendships and partnerships. But when you go back and hear Melody talk about her time as a teacher, you realize that her leadership and resilience didn't just start when she became famous. It was already there. She has always been a builder. She has always been someone who lifts others up while lifting herself. That's why so many people connect with her. And here's the first hook I want to give you. Don't leave yet, because later in this video, I'm going to show you how what Melody said about teaching connects directly to her current business ventures, and how it even sets her apart from Martell Holt's decisions in business. You're going to want to hear that comparison. Now, let's keep going. Melody explained in the interview that even though she left the classroom, she never stopped being a teacher. She now teaches adults. She has a property preservation course where she has helped create over 1,200 entrepreneurs. Think about that. More than 1,000 people now have their own businesses because Melody decided to share her knowledge. That's not just success. That's legacy. And that word legacy is key because every cast member on Love and Marriage Huntsville talks about building a legacy. Marcel Scott talks about building generational wealth through real estate and construction. Letitia Scott talks about financial literacy and budgeting. Martell Holt often talks about wanting to leave something for his kids, even though many fans feel his actions haven't always matched his words. But Melody, she's out here proving it with receipts. She also said something powerful about pivoting. She said one of her guiding principles is to trust her intuition and to make sure that whatever she does, it doesn't harm others. That stood out because if you've watched the show, you know a lot of harm has been done. A lot of pain has been caused, especially in her relationship with Martell. But here she is, saying her moves are rooted in purpose, passion, and fairness. She even said that no matter what industry she's in, she always wants to be fair to her clients and fair to herself. That is such a contrast when you think about the chaos we've seen on screen. Because in the real world, people sometimes chase money, fame, or attention at the expense of fairness. Melody is saying, no, I won't do that. Now, let's pause and think about how this connects to Martell Holt. Martell has been involved in real estate and development projects, but time and time again on the show, fans have questioned his decision-making. Whether it was business deals falling through, his reputation being tied to drama, or his struggle to rebuild after the divorce, Martell has had a hard time proving himself. Meanwhile, Melody has pivoted, kept her reputation strong, and built multiple income streams. And that difference right there shows why she continues to rise while others struggle. Don't go anywhere because later in this video, I'm going to connect Melody's mindset to Letitia and Marcel Scott and why their recent focus on finances and real estate actually ties into what Melody is doing. You're going to want to hear that comparison. Now, let's keep going. Melody explained in the interview that even though she left the classroom, she never stopped being a teacher. She now teaches adults. She has a property preservation course where she has helped create over 1,200 entrepreneurs. Think about that. More than 1,000 people now have their own businesses because Melody decided to share her knowledge. That's not just success, that's legacy. And that word legacy is key because every cast member on Love and Marriage Huntsville talks about building a legacy. Marcel Scott talks about building generational wealth through real estate and construction.
Now I want you to imagine this. Melody sitting in that interview, calm, confident, powerful, reflecting on her journey from a teacher to a business mogul, and still keeping her focus on purpose and priorities. Doesn't that show you just how far she has come since the early days of Love and Marriage Huntsville? From the drama, the heartbreak, the betrayal with Martell Holt, to now sitting on platforms being celebrated for her success. That's growth. That's victory. And that's why fans call her a queen. But we're not done. I need you to stay until the very end because the bigger lesson here is about all of us. Melody's story isn't just her story. It's a blueprint for what happens when you trust yourself, when you pivot, when you prioritize, and when you don't let the negativity of others stop you. And I'm going to tie that blueprint to the journeys of Marcel, Letitia, and Martell before we finish. So let's pause for a moment and bring in the bigger cast dynamic. Marcel Scott, as we know, has been focused on building Holt Industries, working on projects like Black Cigar Lounge and developing real estate properties. He often positions himself as the visionary. Letitia Scott, his wife, has recently been very vocal about financial education, budgeting, and helping people understand money. Together, they present themselves as a power couple, though fans know their marriage has had plenty of challenges on screen. Then you have Martell Holt, who has been trying to re-establish his reputation after the divorce and after the fallout from his affair with Ariane Curry. He has struggled, but he keeps talking about wanting to get back into real estate and business. And then there's Melody, who has not only survived, but thrived. And here's the truth. When you put all of these stories side by side, you start to see a theme. It's about building, pivoting, and prioritizing. Marcel is building businesses. Letitia is focusing on budgeting. Martell is trying to rebuild. Melody is pivoting and prioritizing. They're all connected, and that's what makes Love and Marriage Huntsville such a powerful show. Now, as we come to the final stretch of this video, I want you to really hold on to this. Melody said, trust your intuition, operate in purpose, and don't bring harm to others. That's the guiding principle she lives by. If you look at her life, that principle has carried her through the hardest storms. And if you apply that to your own life, you'll see change too. So here's the big takeaway I promised at the beginning. Melody's story is proof that your past does not define your future. The same way she went from a middle school teacher to a business mogul, the same way she went from a painful divorce with Martell Holt to winning awards and running companies, the same way she went from being underestimated to being celebrated, you can do the same in your own life. Marcel and Letitia are trying to do it in their way, Tisha and Martell before we finish. So let's pause for a moment and bring in the bigger cast dynamic. Marcel Scott, as we know, has been focused on building Holt Industries, working on projects like Black Cigar Lounge and developing real estate properties. He often positions himself as the visionary. Letitia Scott, his wife, has recently been very vocal about financial education, budgeting, and helping people understand money. Together, they present themselves as a power couple, though fans know their marriage has had plenty of challenges on screen. Then you have Martell Holt, who has been trying to re-establish his reputation after the divorce and after the fallout from his affair with Ariane Curry. He has struggled, but he keeps talking about wanting to get back into real estate and business. And then there's Melody, who has not only survived, but thrived. And here's the truth. When you put all of these stories side by side, you start to see a theme. It's about building, pivoting, and prioritizing. Marcel is building businesses. Letitia is focusing on budgeting. Martell is trying to rebuild. Melody is pivoting and prioritizing. They're all connected, and that's what makes Love and Marriage Huntsville such a powerful show. Now, as we come to the final stretch of this video, I want you to really hold on to this. Melody said, trust your intuition, operate in purpose, and don't bring harm to others. That's the guiding principle she lives by. If you look at her life, that principle has carried her through the hardest storms. And if you apply